Are you guys analyzing the in-show version or the one on Spotify?
Oh, doing the one on Spotify.
Okay.
Did they change it?
I changed it in the show.
Oh.
I would suggest listening to episode 8 when it happens.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. Yeah, there's a surprise in there.
If you aren't already a fan of him, you may be familiar with the TV show Arcane Soundtracks, and you might be familiar with NewJeans GODS, which we just interviewed him about. Go check that out if you haven't already. Today, I'm interviewing the singer-songwriter, artist, producer, and film composer who's been releasing music as the artist Mako for about 10 years at this point, right?
Yeah.
Woo! And working for Riot Music since 2017.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 2016. I literally just say 10 years now,
Okay,
but
yeah.
That
Around
might not
10
be true at all.
His musical journey is a special one, so I am so excited to chat with him today.
Thanks for having me.
We're just gonna start at the very beginning, right? When did music first enter your life, and how did your relationship with it shift as you grew up?
Yeah, I mean, I started as a trumpet player, and then...
No way! French horn players always start as trumpet
I
players.
know. I mean, did you start straight up French horn? That's impressive. My band director said if anybody wants to play the French horn, if you just get a mouthpiece, I'll give you a French horn. And I still don't understand why I took him up on that. Because I didn't know what a French horn was, for sure. And then, yeah, stupid stuff like that just like changes the course of your life. It's very strange how it all works.
Absolutely crazy. Yeah, you also know how to play piano.
Not really, though, but like basic songwriter piano. Not like I did recitals or anything like that. Yeah, that's mostly what my musicianship is now, is I can make enough noises in this room that I can then electronically turn into something worth listening to.
Plus, then you get like outside of the box sounds from it, right? Because you don't fully know how to play it.
Absolutely.
But okay, so at this point, you started playing music more seriously throughout high school.
Definitely, yeah. I only listened to classical music, and I listened religiously. I was obsessed, and I didn't know anything that was going on in the outside world. I certainly didn't listen to songs. I didn't listen to vocals. I was just diving through the sort of like whole archive of symphonies.
But at the job that you currently have, you have so much knowledge about so many different artists, so many different genres, so I can't wait to get to that point. So at this point, you're now applying to colleges, got accepted to.
Yeah, it was just Juilliard.
And then this is where like the big transformation moment, right? You're like, do I keep wanting to do this?
Not immediately. I mean, at first you're swimming in this thing. It's incredibly exciting. It's stressful, but it's like a fun stressful. And I did well at first until it's a huge, we could talk about this forever, but it's like, it's a huge thing to like throw yourself completely at an instrument to get to the highest level. There's so few people that really are like, get their act together enough to be in one of the top orchestras in the country to make a living. And I didn't know what I know now, which is I didn't love it that much to get there.
Yeah, that's the thing is going through this, you know, like college-like boot camp, it really tests your love. Like, what do you love? Why do you love this?
Yeah, I mean, this was like late 2000, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 for me. So I don't know if the discourse has changed much, but it was pretty dark back then where nobody's talking about like, hey, there are other paths out there in music. It was a really like, you're a failure or you made it kind of a energy. And it hit a lot of us really hard because we would cling to something we didn't love because we just thought the other end of this is like the abyss. It's like I'll wither away forever if I'm not able to make it on the French horn or whatever. Exactly. And I didn't have any other skills at that point either. And you're at a specialized school, so they're not training you for anything else. But there's just no like community that's talking about like what else is going on. Part of it's the conservatory mindset, and I'm hoping it's gotten better now.
Yeah, I say yeah. It's a bit of a mix. There's still the people who are like, if you want this, go for it, and don't waste your time on anything else. And then the other half is like, there are so many different jobs in the music industry.
Only a few of us kind of made it out and found other ways to like have some self-esteem. A lot of us were pretty broken by the experience, but it's how it goes.
But you had the confidence to move to LA, right?
Yeah, it was definitely not confidence. It was definitely like, so what happened is when I was, sorry if I'm derailing our interview here.
Let's go.
But yeah, like as I was getting into this very dark place with the French horn, I was escaping by diving really deep into film music. I just like really was falling in love with what was going on in movie music. And so it wasn't till around college time that I downloaded some software, started getting some like orchestral libraries, and started actually like writing music for the first time. And that became this like really like safe escape for me when I was kind of crumbling otherwise. There's a program that ASCAP puts on out here. They're a performing rights organization, and they accept like 20 people from wherever around the world. And if you get accepted, you get like a whole month paid out here where they'll tour you around all the big, you go to Hans Zimmer's studio, you visit this guy, and then you get to record a cue at like Fox Studios with the big time players. And I was accepted into that program, and it's just like things just kind of happen at just the right time.
How did you get from soundtrack composition to DJing to being your own artist to working for Riot?
I mean, yeah, that path is as bizarre as the first chapter. And you know what did it really? It was like at this time, Daft Punk had just scored Tron, and like Trent Reznor had done The Social Network, and M83 was doing things, and I started seeing a connection where I was like, oh, if you want to be a film composer, like turning into an artist and being a film composer seems like a little easier way to get through it. I mean, I just named like 3 of the biggest artists. But yeah, you're clawing, you're falling, free falling, and just trying to grab a
trying to grab a
ledge.
star as you're falling from the moon.
100%.
Yeah. And so you started making music as Mako, and then it's just come with networking and people hearing your music that you eventually made your way to Riot?
Yeah, like internet was big. I mean, this is still the case, but like specifically music was spreadable in a way that I think is harder to do now. It was like YouTube was popping off, SoundCloud was really popping off, and music blogs were a thing, which unfortunately I do not know the status of that now. You know, things would start to get like hundreds of thousands of streams on a platform, and this is pre-Spotify, so you're just kind of like, oh wow, somebody's listening to this. And yeah, before you know it, we had been touring as a DJ thing and making songs, and then people at Riot Games started following us on Twitter, and that's when that connection kind of started.
And then started DMing and like, oh hey, you in LA? Yeah, I'm in LA. You meet up for lunch, you vibe, you go to the studio afterwards. Woo!
You know it.
And
just slid into the DMs.
The very first Riot song that you wrote was a World's Anthem?
Funny enough, it was an EDM thing I made for them. And that's probably the last real electronic club record I've ever made. And that was the first of my relationship with them.
That's amazing. And I'm curious how your history has influenced yourself as an artist and as a Riot composer, because you mentioned that at Juilliard you didn't take any composition classes, but you learned music theory there, of course. You practiced with a lot of other musicians, so therefore you knew how to write for other instruments.
I'm so glad I have my theory background and my ear training background, because I see those things as like tools. And so I'm able to digest music pretty quickly because of that background. And also I can make decisions and find my way out of problems kind of quicker. And I think one of my staples in the last couple of years is like getting a little more experimental with my chord writing. And I think that's become something that I've really started to feel like is my voice in the pop scene. And that really is due to a lot of my love of film music and theory and stuff like that.
I mean, I didn't even show you my questions, but you perfectly led into my next question, because I wanted to move on to Arcane related questions. And there's a lot of different writing techniques to convey emotion through instrumental music. And I think you and your team at Riot use them so beautifully.
A lot of that's Alex Temple. He's very good at that stuff too.
I would like to talk about some season 1 Arcane songs and why you did this certain harmonic flair or technique. First one up being Playground with Phrygian, right? And some major mixture.
Yeah, so that's actually, Sebastian started that one. We have this kind of trifecta with Arcane, and my experience at Riot is Sebastian NewJeans, who I did Gods with, Alex Temple, who's like the lead composer on Arcane, and myself. And it's a really fun thing because we kind of fire all this stuff off each other. And so Seb started with the Phrygian thing. And the reason I like writing with Seb is whenever he does those, I know how to write vocal melodies over those. That was like pretty easy. Like we wanted this sexy, exotic kind of song as you're being introduced to Zon for the first time. And then I got to go to town on all the vocal writing and the harmonies and everything like that. And yeah, that's just like us being composer nerds turned into producers.
Guns for hire.
Sure. This is like a weird sidebar, but when I'm scoring with Temple, it's kind of a different brain than when I'm writing a song. Yeah, like orchestral music and good orchestral music needs to be fairly like horizontal and dynamic and develop and do surprising things based on what the ensemble's doing. And like good pop music, especially like, you know, commercial pop music, is very much like about perfect simplicity, about like perfect math that has like symmetry and a quick story, clever lyrics or impactful lyrics. And I was having a tough time when we started Arcane, like switching between brains. Like I would write a orchestra cue that was like very loopy and sort of sounded like a trailer thing, but not really like good movie music. And then my chord writing in my songs was pretty predictable. So Guns for Hire was like one of those experiences where I like kind of broke down the whole system in my head and then made it free flowing.
Took your innocence goodnight. You saw your friends like guns for hire. Go play with your blacks, and now you'll pay in these wars.
Yeah, the chord thing is kind of always humming. To me, chords are where the emotional power of things come from. I mean, it can come from other places, but like the heart of that stuff usually is chord-based for me. And I always know where I am, and I always know, and I'll use it as a tool to transition into other areas. Because if you're doing experimental chords and you're doing chromatic mediants and you're wandering around, you have to find a good cadence point to be able to transition to another section, because otherwise it is confusing to listen to.
Okay, last song from season 1, Goodbye.
I can hear the sound of a heartbeat before it goes out.
Let's talk about secondary dominance.
Sure.
And also, I mean, okay, secondary dominance very commonly used in pop music, but the one that you use in this song has the 5th scale degree as a pedal point, so it includes the resolution, right? Purposeful?
Yeah, I really like pedal tones a lot, and the common thing to do is just have your tonics sail around, but it's really fun to choose unexpected chord tones. 5ths is another great point. That's when I kind of turn my brain off a little bit and I just kind of let a thing, it's like when we studied Ives or whatever, or Stravinsky, where there's just like polytonality. That stuff I can't really think about too much because it twists your brain up. I just kind of let a thing, that's where computers help. You just play a thing and then play another thing and see what happens.
Right.
There's a bit of like, let me throw 2 inputs into a machine and press the spin cycle and see what pops out. And that's usually like when weird pedal tones kind of come into play.
And do you use these pedal tones just for, okay, this sounds cool, or is there a certain emotion that you're trying
Emotions, because you're getting lots of dissonance when you do those, and so it's the dissonance and then the resolutions that I find really moving. And so that's really what a lot of that stuff is I can't remember which scale degree I hold it. I guess it's the 5th in Goodbye, but it's like you get some crunchy ones when you hold that, and I just love that.
Yes, and it's the song about goodbyes, right? End of the episode. Oh, and yeah, you feel this tension, release, tension. It's so beautifully done.
Maybe Arcane was the friends we made along the way.
Now, talking about 21 Pilots, The Line.
The line now, I can't fight this time now. I can feel the light shine.
Yeah, so here's a question for you. Are you guys analyzing the in-show version or the one on Spotify?
Oh, doing the one on Spotify.
Okay.
Did they change it?
I changed it in the show.
Oh.
I would suggest listening to episode 8 when it happens.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun. Yeah, there's a
What?
surprise in there. Tyler wrote that song, and he's so freaking good. I can't go on enough about him. And one of the things that made him such a lovely collaborator is that he wrote this very personal song. We told him the story of Victor and the moment that he had, but I think he needs to find I don't know if he's like, oh, I can write about this fantasy character. He needed to find a story, and he did, and it was really beautiful. And so he wrote that thing for us, but the reason Arcane's so specific is that we really set everything to picture, and most of it we write exactly to picture. And Tyler's really great about here's this thing that means a lot to me. I trust you. Do whatever you need to do to it to make it great for Arcane, and I'll be here on the other side if you need anything. And it was so overwhelming when you're like, wow, this artist who I admire so much is gonna give me the keys to his car and then just be like, take it for a spin. We're I don't know if that's like 16 episodes deep into Arcane. So at that point, I know exactly what I want to do with it. And with his permission, I just kind of like wrote this crazy Alex chord progression that happens the second the chorus really kicks off. When you watch the scene, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And that has a lot of chromatic mediance and weird moments. And when I gave it back to him, he was like, love that. Yeah, he was just immediately, he's like, cool, love it.
Oh, the way that the line brightens up. So that was part of the original melody?
All him. I take no credit for any of that. Yeah, it's beautiful. And there's a lot of like tritones in his melody. And it's like, I don't know where he writes from. And he did that probably in Ohio when he was working on it. I don't know what level of theory he's coming from, but that song is so immediately musical and beautiful, and I think you're just kind of like, wow, this guy is special, and that should be obvious, but it's cool to see it in action.
Oh, 100%. Now, moving on with more Arcane Season 2 songs, Sucker. I heard that you started writing this before Season 1?
Yeah, we went to Paris, this is like October, like a month before Season 1 comes out, to just like immediately talk about the next couple episodes in Season 2. And so Sebastian and I sort of coerced our production team to rent us a really nice studio in Paris. like we need this, because they stuck us in a closet at Fortiche to try and write, and I was just like, we can't.
Not with this atmosphere. I mean, maybe he's on stuff, but
exactly.
Not built over stuff.
I can't. Also, like, I need a couple instruments around me, so we rented a really cool studio, and then Seb started making what became Renegade, and then I just immediately started writing Sucker.
And let's talk about that dissonance during the na 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 na. Is this in G sharp minor?
I can't remember.
Do you remember?
I write all of these in one key, and then I shift them, so I always lose track of where you're at.
I believe it's in G sharp minor. When the singer sings, it sounds like he's a little bit between the C sharp and D.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if that was like a note that was purposeful.
Marcus King, he's so good. I went to Nashville and recorded him. Oh wait, contact, no, I want a piano. Let's see if we can fight our way through these chords. Yeah, so I'm probably like na 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 na
Yeah.
na 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 na.
Yeah.
And then I'm probably like yeah, so it's like going, I don't know, sometimes when you do pop music, you don't always like make a diatonic key for yourself, because a lot of times like the chord progressions you use might not even be touching one for a while. This one obviously is, but I don't know what you call it when you go from G sharp minor to G major.
Yeah.
You probably know better than I do, but it's like that's a vibe for me. I know that's like a cool sinister thing. I also like when major chords sound pretty dark, and that's a progression where you're going from a minor to a major, and then back to something. I mean, it's just like that to me. Those are film score chords, and I love, and that's another example, like Guns for Hire, where I'm injecting those into like the songs.
Yeah, that's definitely the Mako sound, and I'm obsessed with it. So, what kind of emotion were you trying to convey through that dissonance there?
It's kind of early. Sometimes the animatic is early enough on where I don't really know who all the characters are until it gets filled in later. So I just see like this girl. I don't know who she is because I don't know Aisha very well yet, and then these guys coming down to attack them, and it just felt like chaotic. Also, arrangement wise, I needed to vamp there, because all I know when I'm first writing is where is it a verse, where is it a chorus, and where is it something else. And that to me was like, this is a something else vamp section. Have fun, use your production palette as a film composer. And so like it's epic, it's intense, and it's dark, but it's also still in the context of Sucker, which is this swaggy song. So to me, those chords and the textures I wanted there are like chaotic, terrifying, and swaggy. Like that's kind of the little thing, if I could simplify it.
And then that turned into, is it a children's choir?
Yeah, children's choir. Yeah, it's kind of a funny story with that one. The show is only allowed to say the word fuck, I think like
Probably one or two to
say
three.
3 times,
Yeah.
I can't remember. And so naively, I fought really hard to take one of those for Sucker. I'm glad we did, but in retrospect, I'm still glad we did it. But it's a big ask because like I'm taking that from dialogue, from like the actual storytelling to be like, no, in the background, this one song needs to have it. And so they were so nice with me and they gave it to me. So at that point I was like, okay, I can't take it a second time when the children's choir sings. So we recorded a full children's choir saying, get the heck out of my head. And then when it all came back around, Christian texted me, why do they say heck? What did you do that for? And I was like, we're not allowed to in the show. And he's like, yeah, but like the song they're gonna sing, right? And I'm like, oh, I didn't get them singing that. And so we recorded a whole other children's choir.
It's a completely different all for the amazing epicness of the
So
song.
what you're hearing on the record is 2 different children's choirs combining to do it. And it was cool because I got to actually blend it even more and use more, but yeah, it was a weird journey to get there.
Hey, that is awesome as heck. And yeah, just overall, Sucker is such an emotionally deep, dark, heavy song. Are those sounds of chains at the intro?
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Did you, or was it?
No, I'm trying to think. I co-produced this with a good friend of mine named Scott, and he was playing the slide guitars and stuff, and we were having a lot of fun with that stuff. I think these are just samples, like Foley samples that I got on the internet of chains.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Foley samples for the win.
Big time.
Thank you, Foley artists. We really appreciate you. Up next, what have you done to us? Are those string harmonics in the beginning?
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, immediately the atmosphere starts off and you're feeling so many things. Yeah, in this song I felt like dynamics really took the center of the stage. So what story are these dynamics telling?
Yeah, like this was a scene that I didn't write it to be a record. I wrote it to be like a bit of film scoring with vocals. The first time I saw the scene, I was like crying. Like I just totally knew what this thing was. And I had also asked Christian right away, can I perform this? So it was like, I just kind of knew like, I want this to be something that I have a relationship with, a deep one. That song is just like, there's so many things I could say about it, but the atmosphere that you're physically in really influenced what that song started like. Like you are in pitch black after seeing this weird fantasy dream-like backstory, and then you just hear the click of a lighter, and then Jinx is just wandering through the dark, terrified, because what had happened in the sequence prior is she thinks Warwick just killed Vi. Like she doesn't know exactly what's going down, and so you're just kind of in this fog, and that's where the harmonic, I mean, that's what the clouds are. It's just a cloud of like, yeah, real, like kind of a mix of terror and sadness. Yeah, and then the arrangement is just purely reactive to what's happening on screen. I mean, the pre-chorus starts off with the first cut to Warwick in the distance, and so everything's just enunciated by what you're seeing on screen.
I'm so glad that you got to sing on this one, because also just your melody and, you know, the leap up the octave and the growl in your voice, I feel like it connects really well with the end of season 1, the song that you wrote. I always get them mixed up because they're
I know,
both like
I mixed them up too. What could have been.
What could have been,
I do it all
right?
the time.
Yeah, just like the ascending. I guess that's maybe a Mako trait of like always ascending, building, tension building. This feels like almost like a reply or a continuation of it. Did you ever have that song in mind while you were writing this one, or it's just?
I needed Gray to help me with this one because I didn't want to rewrite that same song again. Was a tough one because like the Sting song was like, this moment is so important and so much hinges on it, and so you feel a lot of like pressure, and I really feel like that one just kind of popped out. And this moment, it's a different moment, but it's still super weighty and super emotional, and so I was like kind of concerned that I would just do the same thing again, and I hate doing that. And so I actually didn't start working on it until Gray started sending me ideas they were working on, and that's when the song unlocked for me. But it was kind of a funny experience with Christian because he was very on my ass about, don't make it like the vocal super loud whispering in your ear like the Sting one. He's like, I don't want that. Disappear into the fog. I want the vocal back. And so I was like, cool, I get it. And then I kept doing that, and I put all these like weird whispery pads, and we got to the very end of the process, and he's like, I changed my mind, like bring the vocal all the way forward. And I was like, no, I'm sold on this already. Like, we're gonna keep it back. So it's a really fun experience where he told me one thing and I followed him, and then he changed his mind, but he had already convinced me that it was a cool idea.
Too late, man. Too late. And yeah, no, it ended up being definitely a beautiful standalone song. The next song, my entire team wants to know about. Your creation of all the different instruments and sounds for Ashes and Blood.
Change you. Why would you let this voice set in your head?
Oh yeah. Me and Johan are doing a whole BTS about that. Yes! Yeah, we're gonna go deep. Yeah, that one, that's the crazy one.
Okay, very excited. Can you give us any sort of hints of like, why was this such a big, different experience?
There was no version of who should it be. He was just like, that's you and Woodkid, go run off and do this. And he wanted anti-action music. Like, it's a really crazy sequence and there's so much sound and crazy shit going on. And he's like, I want this to be hauntingly not what you'd expect. And he wanted the song to like have this ancient setting, which is like these people of Shurima that have lived there thousands of years before, warning everyone like, you are playing with fire, and if you go any further, dangerous things will happen. And it's very, very hard to get the balance right of making quiet, calm, haunting music over really active stuff on screen, without it just feeling like this is kind of a boring song, or this song is just like lost the plot about what's happening. And the secret sauce is Woodkid and Tongi, his producer that we did Guns for Hire, the three of us. They know how to make sounds that are like, grab your attention. Like the drum sounds that you hear in there, these anomaly screams that we had our sound design make, like it's all, and then talk about silence, like cutting to silence and then exploding. It's like we're just throwing weird things in there with a bunch of Mako chords.
And I loved how the string arrangement developed. Was that Temple or?
Yeah, this one Temple didn't get involved in. He came to our string session because I just always like having him there, because he just knows how to do that stuff really well. But that was just me, and Woodkid does a ton of strings in his productions as well, so he wasn't like a stranger to it. We had a really stressful string session because Woodkid wanted them, he was very particular, and so we did a lot of takes and it went kind of late into the night and it got a little...
The string players were getting...
Yeah, there was tension.
Go home.
And I was very squeamish about it, but it was worth it because, you know, the strings turned out really cool, and they're, you know, all these portamentos, you know, it's a lot of like weirdness into it, and it took a while to get it.
What an amazing song. Very much looking forward to that behind the scenes video. I do want to talk about Spin the Wheel.
Cool, yeah.
Just turn that hourglass around and count to 10. This ain't goodbye no more.
I was kind of curious whenever I listen to this song and I'm trying to count along. I was like, is this in 3/4 or is it in... I mean, it feels like the vocal melody phrasing is in 4/4 while the instrumental is 6/8.
It's this was kind of a funny one. So it's in 3/4 time, but it's a 6-bar phrase.
Yes. It's the 6-bar phrase thing.
Yeah, I didn't actually like academically think about that. It was a feel thing. For some reason, it was like, how long do I want empty strumming, and then how long is the vocal phrase? And that, I don't really, that was like an intuitive thing, and then I had to kind of figure out, what did I just do afterwards? And so it wasn't intentional, it was just kind of like, this felt right. Oh, turns out it's in 3/4 6-bar phrases, I guess.
And instead of it just being like, oh, it's a folk song, like, right? It's like, oh, there's something that's really intriguing about that.
Yeah, you have to tell me, because like, I tried to just write a folk song, but I don't write folk songs, so I don't know. It was my first time, but I'm me, so I'm still gonna do it in my weird way. You never know how it comes across, so I don't know if it's something where, like, when a person that doesn't have music theory, are they thinking about that? Are they like, oh, the timing's strange, or is
Are you guys thinking about that?
I don't know.
Let us know in the comment section. When you were listening to that phrases, were you like, huh, this is strange? Also,
like, it makes your thing feel not like every other song. So I love using those tools. I never like using weird time signatures as a like, oh, look what I can do kind of thing, which that music annoys me when I listen to it. But I love being like, oh shit, is that in 7? Like, I love that feeling of, it's not about, the thesis of this isn't, hey, look how cool this is. It's like, no, here's a cool pocket that happens to be in 7. and then when you start, you set yourself up there and then create, you just end up making strange decisions that you haven't made before.
Exactly. And so this kind of rewinding a bit, you mentioned in several past interviews that you love maximalist music. You love the wall of sound. So this was a little different.
Yeah, this is probably one of the only like minimal things I've ever made, and we kind of handcuffed ourselves on purpose a little bit, because originally we had intended this thing of Heimerdinger needs to be able to play all of the instruments that you're hearing, because we were going to reveal him as having kind of like a Dr. Seuss kind of like you know that thing, like just kick drums and hi-hats and things all over his body. That
Mary
was
Poppins,
that was the game plan. We didn't end up sticking to it, but I co-produced that with Seb again. We ended up sticking to that format, which was a healthy exercise for me so that I couldn't fall into adding too much shit again. Yeah, so we kept it minimal, and it's one of the first, you know, other than like an acoustic version of a song, I've never really made anything that contained before. The thing that took a while was recording 26 different languages.
Were you there, present?
So our localization team is incredible. I don't know who I mean, I'm sure every region had somebody that translated it. I had to listen to and approve every single singer.
Oh my goodness.
So it was a long 8-month process of our localization team sending us the first pass, which is here's what the song sounds like in Mandarin, here's what it sounds like in Spanish, here's what it sounds like in German, and us being like, cool, that's good, the melodies are weird there, blah blah blah. And then the next phase was here's 4 options from Norway and the 4 options from Greece, and I had to pick, say none of these are quite working, can you find somebody else, and here's what I need. And so it was like this long back and forth, and then eventually one by one we're just locking them all in, but it took a really long time to get all that going.
Wow, was that your job as the main producer of this song, or was it the executive music producer?
The line is a little blurry. I would have been a part of it even if I wasn't executive producing the soundtrack, but it felt really like, let me make sure I'm paying attention to this and making sure it turns out great. Our teams are so good, so it really didn't need much from me other than to just pick things for them. But yeah, that was probably more of an executive producer hat that I did throughout the season, which is like these extracurricular things. Make sure that they're turning out at the quality that the rest of the soundtrack is.
Yeah, exactly. My next question is for Alex Seaver, Mako, executive music producer. So you mentioned that this time around, season 1 was a lot of you reaching out to artists and explaining what Arcane is. This time artists came to you. And so, yeah, do you know if it was Tom Morello and would they reach out to Stray Kids, or what was that process?
Our team reached out to Stray Kids. The strategizing this season was great because our Riot Games music team is really strong, and we learned a lot, and we were like, let's make this soundtrack as international as possible. You know, at Riot Games we have like a long-running relationship with K-pop in general. We have KDA, the Virtual Artist Project.
Oh, I know KDA.
Yeah. Korea is one of our big player bases, and you know, I'd worked with NewJeans. Like all this stuff felt like home. But I think that song was our team's strategy. Like, let's try and get Stray Kids, but it started with Tom Morello and Kill Dave, a producer, made that beat together. And so like, we got Stray Kids, we also got young Miko on it. Like, it's a really badass record, but it took a long time to get all the pieces together. But Stray Kids was super down. I didn't get a chance to work with them myself, but there was a stream session that happened at 2 or 3 in the morning that Sebastian and Kill Dave were on. But everything I heard was like, they just blasted through it and were great. I mean, K-pop artists are just so good vocally, like they're so good. Also, their engineers are really strong. There's a lot of vocals in K-pop because you're dealing with these bands that have so many singers that is always one of the easiest parts of it. Is just
they're used to staying 8 hours in the booth just layering. So I'm sure this was just like, oh yeah, we can do the choir sound, you know?
The hard part with that one was just getting the arrangement on screen and getting Christian's buy-in too, because the stories of these songs have to communicate a lot of things, and if we're going to do non-English on screen, it has to be like really sick and really lock in still.
So before we move on to Mako self-promotion time, are there any motifs or little moments in the soundtrack or songs that you wrote for season 2 that you would like to share with the audience?
There are a lot in there. Not quite yet. I think I'm still in the fun period of like seeing people digest the music.
You gotta wait it out.
Yeah, I don't want to call them all out quite yet because like people are really good. People are really perceptive. So like as people like first off, you're watching the show, and that's such a spectacle. So like, we're not really expecting everyone to be paying attention to every cue, but there's a lot of like Easter eggs and stuff hidden in there.
So we have arrived at the end of this interview. Where can fans follow you?
Yeah, I think it's just, you look up Mako on Instagram, it's Mako. I think Twitter's the same, or X.
And you have a Discord too?
I do have a Discord. It's Mako's Coyotes. They're lovely. I get so nervous about, like, I don't want to let people down, so I haven't logged in for a while because I don't want people to be like, where are you? But they're the nicest people on there. So if you're on Discord, go to Mako's Coyotes. It's a good group.
I am part of the group, and they are very nice, very supportive. They've been giving birthday shout outs.
That's awesome.
What a great community. And then last but not least, any projects that you have coming out soon or that you recently released that you'd like to promote?
I'm working on some new things. I'm doing another Netflix show that I'm not able to announce yet, but it'll be out in 2025. And then more music with my sweet friends at Riot Games. Everybody's working super hard on some cool stuff. I have one coming out in not too long, that with another one that me and Sebastian did together, that it's really fun. So yeah, I think just pay attention to the Riot Games music space. You'll get some new stuff.
And pay attention to Mako's YouTube channel, because
That's right.
there may be some behind the scenes, some making of song videos. Those the best content for us music nerds and just soundtrack nerds. Ooh!
Oh, thanks.
Thank you. You were feeding us well.
I didn't ever really spend much time on my YouTube channel, so I just kind of put those out into the ether, and everybody's been so nice about like really enjoying them, so that totally encouraged me to be like, cool, let's keep them going.